All right, I have this little setup right here, and I thought to myself, man, no, I might as well just take advantage of this little setup and teach you a little bit about camera along with Lightroom. Um, namely, let me get a new sketch pad out here. Namely, this. If I have an item here, and I have an item here, and I have an item here, and I aim my camera here. These are sitting on a table, and I have this one. This is fore, mid, and back. Okay, so my foreground, middle ground, and background. What I'm going to teach you is just a common thing you should know, and that's aperture. But you know, one of the things that I've noticed that some students might have got it, some people might not have got it, but now I have this nifty little setup here, that allows me to take a picture, show you exactly what it does, how it works, and then set up a new scenario and then take another picture. That's pretty powerful. So what I did here in my junk, I set an item up way up front and one way in the back, and then I turned my aperture way up. And when I say way up, this is my aperture, f-stop. Okay? So right now, before, this shot was shot with a 9-point aperture. Okay? Now that has a pretty good depth. I mean, I can see everything from the foreground to the background, and I can read reasonably stuff on the back. So you can see 9-point already kind of started to drop off. And these two items were really close together. But now I've cranked that up. And now you can see that when I even moved this item forward and this item way back, so they're about 4 inches apart, what happens when I turn the aperture up. Okay, so let me get my doohickey out here. So for it build. Take a picture. It's going to take a while because I have no flash, and I just wanted to do that because I don't know why. I like taking pictures without a flash. It's just what I do. Now you can feel if you heard the click, that was an incredibly long exposure, right? So you can guess that when you take a picture like that, you can see how it's taken a long time to process. You can say that, wow, because of the fact that it took so long within the camera to process, the longer the click is, the longer it takes to process, you need a tripod. Okay,
There's
now
no doubt
I've
about
made
it.
those
You would
adjustments
need a
to the
tripod
camera
to
shoot at an aperture ratio this high. Okay, let's take a look at this now and take a shot. Okay, look, I can see the detail on that time quite well.
It didn't need a whole
And
lot of
I can
exposure
also
time.
read the glue bottle in the background. Okay, and if I go to develop this, and it should be already in the library because it only takes a few seconds.
Don't forget, there
because
is
no sharpening.
didn't need that proper exposure, so it took
So
a lot shorter time to
there's
get
no
into
sharpening
Lightroom.
that occurs within a
And look at
digital
that.
photo.
Wow, I can't
Happens
read
after the
Gorilla
fact.
Glue at all.
And I can see the detail on him. Okay, but let's see. Look around here. Also, I
Let's see
didn't
what the
really
autofocus
focus
is
that. I mean,
grabbing
it's on
onto.
autofocus, so that way I don't have to adjust with
Makes
the
sense.
whole setup as I sit on my computer.
And this thing
So what
shoots
happens
across the
here
room.
is it looks like. So now what I'm going to do is
exposure or
take
the,
and lower that
detail
aperture quite
all
a bit.
goes
Not move any of
into,
my items, mind you. Just lower
one of
the
these
aperture,
things, but definitely
and
not
adjust
him,
the exposure to
and
compensate
definitely
for
not
that.
him. And this is
because
the
what
product
happens
of
is
autofocus being
if
on.
I take
And
you'll
aperture,
notice that in a camera,
it's funny when
which
you have
is a hole,
autofocus on.
there's these little dots that appear inside your camera
Okay.
viewport. Okay, and I make the aperture bigger in numbers Okay,
And
what I mean by numbers
here,
is
the center part
if
should
I
be
make
aimed
it,
at the
let's
thing with
say
the highest
another
detail.
hole over here,
If
you would think
you're
because a
shooting
hole is
center
bigger,
exposure
the number is
or
larger. Well,
center,
you'd be wrong. Actually,
detail.
it's the opposite
Right
way
here,
around.
that dot
If the hole is
is going to be
larger,
your
that's
highest
the
detail.
smaller number.
Now,
This
in
is a
digital
4,
SLRs,
and
you
this
can
is
move
a
these
22.
around. Like I can say, well, I only want the highest
Now,
amount
is
of
that
detail
confusing
on
or
this
what?
one. I can only
So
want
what
the
happens
highest amount
is
of detail
light
on this
streams
one.
in, and
You can move it
and
around
if it's a
using,
4,
you know, the
well,
little
I don't
widget
need a
tool on
long
the side
shutter
of your
time
camera
because
that has the
4
little
is
dial
cracked open,
that's pretty
and
easy
lots
to
of
do.
light can get
It
in.
happens on
Lots of
different
particles
cameras,
of light.
different ways,
Bum, bum, bum.
but that's mainly how you
Lots of
kind of move it
particles.
around. And
But
you can
here,
see it
however,
inside your viewport.
I'm going to need a longer
These will
exposure time
highlight
because
red.
there's
Indicating
not
which one
a
is
lot
going
of
to be
light
at
coming
focus.
in
Here because it's a
So what I'm
small
going to
hole.
do is move my focus point
So
to the
now,
guy here
because
I'm
and
here
then
now.
come back.
What I'm going to have to do is lower the aperture ratio or lower the number on the ratio so it gets a bigger hole, and then my exposure time, which is actually 20 seconds on this shot, will be way higher in my next shot. So this is you can see f-stop at 32 actually is what I got, and it's a 20-second exposure. So let me do that on my camera and kind of show you how that works. Okay, now I've made those adjustments to the camera. So let me get my sort build out here and take a shot. Clicked a lot faster that time because it didn't need a whole lot of exposure time. And it should be already in the library because it takes a few seconds because it didn't need that proper exposure, so it took a lot shorter time to get into Lightroom. And look at that. Wow, I can't read Gorilla Glue at all. And I can see the detail on him. Okay. But let's see, look around here. Let's see what the autofocus is grabbing onto. Honey cents. Micro. So what happens here is it looks like that the exposure or the detail all goes into one of these things, but definitely not him, and definitely not him. And this is the product of autofocus being on. And you'll notice that in a camera, it's funny when you have autofocus on, there's these little dots that appear inside your camera viewport, okay? And here, the center part should be aimed at the thing with the highest detail if you're shooting center exposure or center detail. So right here, that dot is going to be your highest detail. Now in digital SLRs, you can move these around. Like I can say, well, I only want the highest amount of detail on this one. I can only want the highest amount of detail on this one. And you can move it around using the little widget tool on the side of your camera that has the little dial. That's pretty easy to do. It happens on different cameras, different ways, but that's mainly how you kind of move it around. And you can see it inside your viewport. These will highlight red, indicating which one is going to be at focus. So what I'm going to do is move my focus point to the guy here, and then come back. Okay, I only got 2 minutes for this video because I want to get this for a YouTube thing, so I'm going to quickly take this shot. I turned manual focus on and I took VR off because VR is something on a camera that allows a person with high caffeine to take a shot without a tripod and still work out right. On a tripod, however, it's stupid. So here is my shot now in my library, which is now over here. And you can see that the highest amount of detail right here is in his axe, and that's where I focused in on. That's where that center dot was I talked about. And if I do a quick white balance on this, you're going to find it to look like that, and a very quick white balance. And then down here, if I sharpen that up a little bit, there we go. There's his highest amount of detail in his axe, and you can see the gorilla is totally blurred out, and that is because of my aperture being it's a low number and my speed is a high number. There's my perfect histogram, kinda. Kinda means it should be not clipping up to the top also. Okay. All right, so there is aperture. And if you're thoroughly confused, you should check out the next video, which is going to be equally confusing. Yay.